Hi Hamish, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. The obvious question to begin with is how is everything in the Godthrymm camp right now?
So at the moment, right now, it's a mixture of excitement because it's the eve of the album release, and so yeah, very excited because we put so much hard work, effort into this. But that's also the same reason why we're quite as nervous as we are to check out people's reactions to it.
Have
so
you have you had seen many kind of early critic reactions yet?
Yeah, I've been getting notified of a few different reviews. We've got a few written reviews that are all great, getting some great scores coming through. So, yeah, getting the print magazines are just kind of coming out from this month onwards. So it's all kind of coming together quite quickly right now.
Yeah, it's suddenly nothing for a while and then it just speeds up and then it's here.
It's a strange kind of feeling because it was like 6 months when since we were actually in the studio. So it seems like it has been a bit of a wait to get to this point.
It's kind of how it's done now, really, isn't it? You've just got to have this slow build, release your singles, do your
Yeah,
press.
and also very much factoring the time of year that you could finishing an album as well, because once we were done recording, by the time artwork and mastering and everything would be done, you just kind of going into December at that point, and then December and January are for a number of different reasons.
Yeah.
A strange time of year.
Did you then sort of find having that long period off, I guess, kind of hard to then switch yourself back on?
It's kind of funny because as soon as the album itself was finished, and I was so intently listening and studying it at the time we were doing it, and then afterwards going through the mixing process and then the mastering process, that was not just mastering for the digital and CD release, but mastering for vinyl as
Yeah.
well. I was having to really look at the album in a very critical manner in regards to the actual oral spectrum of it.
Yeah.
And so having done that at that length, it was quite good to then kind of step back a little bit and not listen to it quite so intently for a moment. And we didn't have shows over that period, and
Yeah.
then was just able to kind of step away from it just a bit. And then as the schedule was coming together with Profound Law Records and the PR companies, and having to think and start, talking about the album, then I started, listening to it a lot more intently again and getting ready for the first show. And so it was great coming back in and listening to it with slightly fresher ears again. And it was very good to know that I still very much love it.
Yeah, I was about to say, was it when you came back to it where you're like, oh God, this was brilliant?
Well, I'd fallen out of love a little bit with We Are the Dead, for
Okay.
instance, but because we'd done a version of it before, and we'd been playing that song solidly for quite a long period of time, and I just after a certain point, after having done it in the studio, I was like maybe less enthused about that song compared to the newer songs.
Yeah.
For instance, the absolute newest songs on the albums are, Monsters Lurk Herein, See As My Grave, and The Light of You, which I was incredibly excited about because they were the newest, freshest songs. And We Are the Dead had kind of dropped off my radar a little bit. So then after the break, going back and listening to it again, and really then able to appreciate a lot more how it slots in with the other songs as well, and how there is, quite a good bit of contrast throughout the album, I think. And in order to, kind of have the darkest bits, it's good to contrast that against something just a kind of a little bit lighter.
Yeah.
And it's weird to think that a song called We Are the Dead is considered a lighter moment, but comparatively, it probably is.
That's good. So you did kind of keep us waiting for this full length with like a grand reclamation released back in early 2018. Is there any particular reason that you kind of took, well, about 2 years, or did you just want to take your time?
So it was finding the absolute best dynamic for the band, and really being very clear about why was doing an album. So at first, doing that initial EP,
Yeah.
the focus was just very much about enjoying connecting with this style of music once again, and playing with other musicians that I've not played with for a number of years. But then as it went on, and we kind of enjoyed writing new material, and me and Sean were certainly really getting quite into the new music we were writing, it became kind of clear that no, what we really wanted to do was something that was a bit more kind of focused on the darker end of the kind of spectrum, a bit more kind of, as I say, focused into a much more kind of distilled idea of what should make the band. Whereas at first there was extra kind of influence in there. We were quite open with people bringing in different ideas, and a bit more of a melting pot of ideas, and that was fine. But and certainly as we went on, it was clear that it was much more of a singular vision, and so really that bit just changed around the lineup a couple of times, and also then the songs themselves have gone through a couple of changes. Some of them, at least, anyway. That's why I was saying, "We Are the Dead," for instance, that went through a number of different changes, different lyrics initially, different vocals, different arrangement. It went through a lot of change before it became the final version that we've got of it. Whereas, as I say, the newest songs, they were strangely easier in some ways, because it was coming from just a much more singular vision of what we wanted to achieve.
Oh yeah, I completely understand what you're saying. Effectively, you spent time finding your feet, finding, as you say, is exactly how you wanted to sound. So when it came to those new tracks, you were in that place.
We're in that place already. Hit our stride. We know what we want. I'd spent a period of time, wondering, did I, want to shy away from more like the kind of, big layered harmonies and, the mournful lead stuff. And at one point in time, we're wondering about, do we want to, welcome comparisons to, the obvious comparisons like, My Dying Bride and Paradise Lost, for instance. And in the end, kind of ultimately decided, don't really care about those as comparisons. That's fine. And, yes, some of it will echo, My Dying Bride in some ways. Yeah, because, I was in that band for 15 years, contributing to the sound of that. And, I was in a band with Greg McIntosh for 9 years. So there will be some of that bloodline in what we do. And now we just kind of think, fine, as if at the end of the day, what we're hearing is what we love and what we want to do, then that's just fine, great. That's the more important thing than does this sound like, the old unholy trinity kind of doom death bands. It's like, well, yeah, it will do, because I absolutely loved that whole sound and was incredibly passionate about it. And right now, just want to do music that I quite selfishly want to hear.
You've earned that right. I think you've earned that right. Thing
We're
is,
not trying to create
Sorry.
something new. We're not trying to create something particularly new here. It's just wanting to write new songs within, this template that we, love and admire so much.
Well, it's interesting you said it as well, because it seems to me, right, Godthrymm now 2020, that whereas when you first came away with the EP in 2018, it was referenced to me and always talked about as, and here's Godthrymm, which has ex-members of the bands you've mentioned, My Dying Bride, Valenfire, and so on. But now in 2020, that seems less of the case, and actually now the buzz seems to always be, Godthrymm's new album with these guys.
I would very
cool
much like that to be the case. That's incredibly cool. I would absolutely love that to be the case. Certainly, throughout the writing and recording of this album, it was just thinking that is this an album that could just stand on its own merit or regardless of history. That's ultimately what we kind of wanted to do. So it's fantastic if people are wanting to actually hear the album, because it's the debut Godthrymm album rather than being the new album from ex-members of the aforementioned bands. So that's incredibly encouraging. And I hope when we get to play some more shows, we'll get to to see the reactions from hopefully a whole new audience again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's no secret that I'm a fan. And part of that comes from up until a few years ago, really until we really started working on the site. I didn't really listen to Doom. I didn't, not as much as I could. And it's bands like yourself, Godthrymm. So, like, I don't have a history with the likes of My Dying Bride, or Paradise Lost and so on. Though for me, hearing someone like Godthrymm, there is no connection for me to get all confused about.
Right,
But here's the thing, like with the new album, right? So I love the EP, and going into the new album, regardless of whether I think you're an amazing band, artist, and so on, you still get nervous. What if you don't like it? But obviously that's so far from the case with Reflections. It's an excellent album. You sound like you're very happy with the end result. Is that the case?
So incredibly happy indeed, because as much as I make reference to the influences and the scene we kind of initially loved, we've not gone out of our way to recreate those original sounds or production values. Basically, kind of everything that's brought us up to this point right now, I've got reflected in the album, and so as time's gone on, I've learned more about equipment and recording techniques and things like that. And so rather than just trying to, recreate that old Academy Studios kind of sound, it's you're taking in kind of, newer influences and like a fresher perspective in regards to the actual sound. So it is the style that I want to do, but very much in the sound that with which we want to create it. I'm incredibly proud and so pleased with it, because whilst I've been recording albums for a few number of years now, this is like the 10th studio album that I've been a part of. In many ways, it kind of feels like my first. And before going into the studio, I was thinking that if for whatever reason this was the last album I was ever to do, would this be like the definitive album of this is the way I played guitar, this is how I liked to write music, and as time's gone on, turns out this is evidently how I do vocals as well. That was never originally my plan. I went so many years of being in bands and playing live without taking like kind of front and center vocal, but that initial necessity actually became a great vehicle to kind of just showcase much more of my kind of personality and ideas into the songs. So it's I experimented with a couple of different kind of techniques and ideas, and really feel like I've kind of hit a stride with a vocal style that I think works very well.
Yeah.
And I can listen to the album without feeling too nervous about the vocals, and can just kind of listen to it almost as if it's someone else singing.
Yeah.
And that someone else is very specifically Tom Waits on The Light of You. I mean, that some influences are more obvious than other ones, that's sure. But once again, I don't mind that. Proudly display it. So yeah, very happy.
It's perfect. It's literally perfect for the style of music you're playing and stuff like that. No one's expecting you to be hitting a Rob Halford high, No,
yeah, exactly. There's some incredible clean voice singers out there, and I'd love to be able to do some of that, and I tried, but it's there's a real physicality to that, and different voices have different strengths, and it's just trying to find the one that suits best for yourself. And I'm quite happy with what I'm doing now. And ultimately, the good test is that I'm desperate to go back into the studio to do more.
Oh, yeah, okay. You've got the
I know,
bug.
but that's going to be a bit of a while off. Yeah, we've got to give this album the chance to to make its mark on the scene. But already very keen to to be writing and recording more, because it's just I just feel really inspired, and it's a very inspiring band that we've got with Sean and Bob in the band. I'm just keen just to do more of it, because it's just it's exciting and it's fun.
Well, I'm glad you actually mentioned Bob, because he's now your permanent bass player, right?
Yeah, the man's a star.
Well, how did that come about?
So he was originally my first choice for bass player when the band was starting out, because I've known him for absolutely years. He's a monster of a bass player, and a wonderful guy. But at the time when Godthrymm was starting and we were first jamming out those initial ideas, we spoke to him about it, but he just had too much on at that point in time. He owned and run a studio and rehearsal complex, and was playing in other bands as well, and so he just had so much on his schedule at that point, and just didn't see how that could work. So cue a couple of years later, and a couple of lineup changes later, we had shows booked, and I just thought, get back in touch with Bob, see how things are with him now, and would he fancy at least just coming and playing some shows, because I know he could learn them easily, he'd play fantastic, and we'd just have a laugh.
Yeah.
So he did exactly that, but thankfully he really enjoyed what he was doing, and it was only just a couple of shows in when we were coming back from Belgium, and he was saying that he really loved it, he enjoyed this. He'd been listening to the album whilst learning the songs, and was really enthused by it, and was keen to be a part of it for the future. So it's just worked out fantastically. It's just it's just a shame to get him on board to at least of have him on this debut. Yeah,
of course. But at least you're now you sound like a unit. It's no hired gun situation.
Yeah, no, it seems like a real cohesive unit. We work together very well, get on very well, and the power trio format is just great for us live. We can just go outrageous with the sounds that we want. Can have a huge guitar tone. He can have this massive bass sound, and we're not encroaching on each other's space. Sean can just be pounding out with his quite unique style of drumming, and no one's really treading on each other's toes. We've got a lot of space that we can work with, and we fill up a lot of sonic space, I think.
Well, talking about playing live, you're playing the Unicorn in Camden on the 22nd of Feb as an album launch show, playing Reflections in full, right?
In full, very much looking forward to it. I'm going to play the whole album, not necessarily in order. We're going to mix things up a bit and also add an extra couple of songs in as well. So, going to be a lot of fun. Very much looking forward to that. The rehearsals have been sounding great. And, we're just been enjoying the slightly different dynamic of performing these songs as a three-piece, because on the album there's on occasion some bits there's extra harmony work on the guitars there, and so but with only one guitar on there, it gives a lot more room for Bob to move a lot more, and we just acknowledge that we don't want to simply recreate the album live. It is its own beast. Performing live, and so a couple of bits we've just kind of enhanced and had a bit of fun with. So I can't wait to start doing it.
So what's been the highlight of Godthrymm so far for you? This or something else? A live show, perhaps?
Oh, absolutely. The highlight was just then completing the final harmonies on top of Cosmic Sorrows, and just sitting back in the studio and then just hearing the full kind of orchestration of all the guitar layers and the harmonies that I had. When I was first laying that song down, Nathan, the producer, didn't quite get what I was up to, because at that point he was just hearing a lot of very sparse recordings with just bits of guitars, and then some drums come in, and like what seemed like quite a long stretch of not a lot going on. But then as it was then painting these extra layers on top of it, just creating this whole wall of sorrow on top. It was just, I was just getting more enthused and excited, and could see the point where, he was like, really getting it. And then he said so afterwards, like, God, I didn't know quite where it was going, but once it started taking shape, it's just really quite something else. And I just find that so exciting, just writing, creating, and just building up these, feelings, and, as I say, big walls of music. So I think that was a serious high point.
Yeah.
And well, hopefully then the culmination of this will be the album launch show in London, actually playing the whole thing live for the first time. So that's
as a
great,
fan, I'll tell you what mine was as a fan. Bloodstock 2018.
Hey, Bloodstock. Oh, that was great. Yeah.
That was, I dragged my wife and my brother along for that in the selfie stage. Loved it.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah, that was a really great day. That was really nice. We'd only just played in Germany, I think it was the week before, and it was then just cementing the whole new version of the band as a 3-piece dynamic, and that was a great day for sure. That was just wonderful. It was also incredibly special. Then playing a couple of shows with our friends in Paul Bearer. That was wonderful, and playing the Paradise Lost 30th anniversary show as well was all special stuff. It's amazing couple of years in, and there's quite a few contenders for highlights. So that's going to be a good sign.
And the thing is you're only starting 2020 off with your new album about to come out. The hope is there will be a hell of a lot more.
I would absolutely hope so indeed. Yeah, we've got this first show coming up imminently, and the review is going to be coming out. I would really hope that we're going to have a whole bunch of new shows coming up, and just experience leading us towards the next album.
So you're pretty active on social media, something that seems to become kind of less of a choice and more of a necessity for bands these days. Is it something you're finding you have to force yourself to do, or do you actually enjoy it?
No, I quite enjoy it. I know some people are quite quick to criticize it, but I quite like it as commentary on remarkable level of access between bands and people who are into the music, and I think that's just great. I think quite a fortunate position to have that level of interaction. I think that's quite fantastic.
Oh, good.
So I like it. So that's why I'm very happy being as present as I am online.
Oh, it shows. It really does.
Still never quite understood Twitter as much, though.
Okay, what gets you up in the morning, and what do you like to do to relax? Like what when you're not head buried in music, basically?
Head buried in music, and it's but the time's absolutely dominated by by family, and so that's why like kind of timing for interviews and things is got to be quite kind of specific to avoid like bedtime. I've got a wonderful wife, 3 daughters, and a great family life, and that's they're the absolute everything. Very lucky and very fortunate, and I certainly don't take that for granted.
I'm glad, man. I'm glad. All right, well, I'll keep you from your family then. I got one more for you. If you could play a show with 3 other Doom bands, be them headliners or your support, who might you choose?
with 3 other bands, in
3.
fact. Well, so I mean, I would have to be saying, I've had very dear friends, and get Paradise Lost and Paul Bearer as well in there, just simply because to have all those friends all together at the same time, as well as the fact that I absolutely love them as bands as well. And then to just completely, complete that as well. And hell, of course, My Dying Bride as well. The absolute giants of the scene, and with shared dear times and memories together. And I'm really looking forward to their new album as well, because they've also got their new album just about to come out, and everything I've heard so far sounds amazing, and so we're looking forward to that. So it's really quite an exciting point in time now. So I mean, that'd be one hell of a show there.
It would be, what a lineup.
Paradise Lost, My Dying Bride, Paul Bearer, and us busking the crowd on the way in. So, that'd be fantastic. And I would have a good giggle with that, definitely. So, so for very selfish reasons, I would go for that. Just, a chance to hear some of my favourite bands and see some of my favourite friends. So
no one would complain about that lineup. It's amazing. Hamish, thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for watching. You can check us out on gbhbl.com, as well as on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and Tumblr. Go to Patreon and help us out over there. That's patreon.com/GBHBL, as well as Big Cartel, where you can find some of our merchandise. We have a podcast running on SoundCloud and Apple Podcasts. And of course, if you like this video, do us a favour, hit the subscribe button and help the channel grow. Games, horror and heavy metal. What else is life for?